Hi, everybody. Welcome back as we continue our discussion of epistemology, the philosophy of knowledge. And we'll begin today looking at empiricism and its major issues, which have to do with perception. And by doing that, we're going to take a look at the first way of looking at empiricism, which is naive realism. Lots of fancy words, lots of fancy terms. We'll get to know all of these in the next few minutes. So empiricism, remember, we're looking at how do we know something? How can we justify saying, I know that my mom wears size 8 shoes. I know that the Warriors have the second pick in the 2020 NBA draft. How can I justify making any sort of statements of propositional knowledge? And this is important, as we talked about last time, because a lot of our decisions and how we behave is based upon what we think we know. And we looked at various harmful beliefs concerning the pandemic that we're in and how people had really strange ideas of how to cure it. So figuring out how we're supposed to justify what we know is rather important. And the first approach to justifying knowledge that we'll take a look at is empiricism. So for the empiricists, they believe that their beliefs can be justified only through sense experience. So you've all probably taken basic science and you've learned about your five senses. And when we normally talk about knowing something, oftentimes we are referred to, empiricism. Hey, so how many cars do you have? Yeah, I own two cars. Well, how do you know that? You know that because you bought the cars. You see them in your driveway. Right? It's through your sense experience that you know you have two cars. So for the empiricist, then, all knowledge is a posteriori. So the posteriori term, think of it this way, it begins with the word post, right? Which means after something. So to say all knowledge is a posteriori is to say that it's gained after experience. So knowledge isn't something inherent within your mind. Knowledge is something that you get after experiencing the world. In this sense, then, empiricists often think of the mind as a passive receiver. So the mind is something that passively takes in what you get through your senses. And once you get that information through your senses, you can develop knowledge of it, right? So if somebody asks, well, how many socks do you own? And you go, I don't know. I mean, you can find out, right? You go to your drawer or wherever you keep your socks and you count them. So you get that knowledge from your experience, and then that experience fills your mind with knowledge. It seems common sense, doesn't it? I mean, how do you know you're sitting in a chair right now? It's because you're experiencing sitting in a chair right now. How do you know you're listening to a lecture? Well, because you're having the experience of listening to a lecture, right? How do you know that we studied metaphysics a couple weeks ago? Because you have the experience of us studying metaphysics a couple of weeks ago. So empiricism seems like a very common sense approach to knowledge. So let's um, look at this visually. So for the empiricist, then, there's this external world, there's a world here, and you experience that world, right, through your senses. And as you receive those sensations from the external world, that fills up your mind. And now what's filling up your mind is knowledge. It's the knowledge you've gained through what you've sensed of the world, right? So examples besides the ones I just gave you are things like, hey, Jay's car is gray. That's a type of empirical knowledge. You can know that through your senses. You go take a look at the car, it's gray. You can say your computer is on or off, and you could know that by looking at your computer. It looks on to me. I can see the lecture, right? You can say things like, I received an A on the midterm. Maybe I give you your midterm back. I guess in our class, it's online, so I wouldn't be handing you anything, but you go on to our Canvas page and you can see your midterm grade. You go, oh, look, there, I received an A on the midterm, right? So these are all examples of receiving knowledge empirically. You experience the world through, in these cases, your sight, Or maybe I tell you, hey, you got an A in the midterm, so you experience it through your hearing. But either way, you experience the world through your senses, and that comes to your mind, and then it fills your mind, and now we say you know something. Okay? So that's the general idea with empiricism. But hopefully you see here through our examples and through the reading what the problem could be. I mean, what's wrong with trusting your senses? When you see somebody's car as being gray, does that mean it's gray? Have you ever been wrong about that before? You ever check your computer to see whether it's off before you leave the room or leave your apartment, and then you come back and you notice it's actually still on? Have you ever been mistaken about that? Have you ever been given a test or an exam back, and at first glance you thought you got a certain grade, and then you get happy or you get really sad, depending on what you thought you saw, but then later on you take a look at it again and you misread it? Maybe you thought what you thought was an A was actually a D, but you just didn't see that little bottom part of the A. So we know we've been deceived, right? We know our senses aren't always how the world is. And this was what was brought up in the article I had you read for today. One of the primary problems with empiricism is are all of these examples when our perceptions have led us astray, right? And we got a glimpse of this when we took a look at Descartes and his various arguments, when he was looking at his method of doubt. But let's take a look at the examples in the reading for today. In the reading, we have this hypothetical the discussion or hypothetical back and forth um, in the context of a Bill Clinton hearing, right? So President Clinton is being tried for perjury, and hypothetically, is that the right word? Within this fictional story, right? He says, "I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth." And immediately his defense attorney says, "The defense objects. The witness has just perjured himself." Well, it's odd to say he's perjured himself. It seems like he hasn't actually made a claim yet about the case. But what's Dershowitz responding to here? Well, he's responding to Clinton's claim to swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Right? He's objecting to that. He's saying he's perjuring himself because he won't be telling the truth. He can't be telling the truth. Well, for the next several, pages within the assigned reading, Dershowitz makes the case, right, that Clinton is going to have problems telling the truth on the grounds that him and us can't know, maybe, possibly, what the truth is. Now, why would he say that we couldn't really know what the truth is? Okay, so let's take a look at some of the examples here from the reading. The first thing he's going to point out is that knowledge based on perceptions can be deceiving. Dershowitz asks Clinton in the story, "Is there a red, white, and blue flag in the courtroom?" Okay, so most all courtrooms in America have our flag, and we can see the flag. And Bill Clinton, when asked, says, "Yes, there is a red, white, and blue flag in the courtroom." Dershowitz asks, "Well, how do you know?" Clinton says, "I'm looking at it. I can see it, right? That's how I know." Well, Dershowitz then provides us the example. It's a classic example of a pencil in a cup of water. You put any sort of straight object, a straw, a pencil, you know, in a glass of water, and it's going to look fragmented, right? It'll look broken in some sense. I mean, that's what we perceive. But we know that the pencil is not broken, right? Our perceptions have a tendency to give us a depiction of reality that's not true. Well, how would you verify that the flag is red, white, and blue? If we can't trust your perceptions, what could we do? Well, maybe we ask somebody else in the courtroom. Hey, you over there, do you see a red, white, and blue flag too? Maybe one way to justify our perception is to get other people to collaborate with us. corroborate with us? Well, we ask somebody else and they say, I don't know. I don't know if it's red, white, and blue. In this case, in the story, it was because we were asked Ray Charles, right? The famous blind musician, pianist, vocalist, awesome performer. Um, and Ray Charles, because he's blind, doesn't know. Well, okay, well, he's just one person. Let's ask somebody else. Is there a red, white, and blue flag in the courtroom, Mr. Peabody? And Mr. Peabody says, no, it's red, white, and green. If we take Mr. Peabody to the optometrist, we'll see that he actually doesn't pass what we consider, our normal uh, ability to see colors, right? He's colorblind to some extent, which means when he sees or looks at a red, white, and blue flag, he sees something that's red, white, and green. Well, what both the Peabody example and the Ray Charles example show us is that perceptions are subjective, right? There is no there is no way of verifying whose perception is more true, whose perception is more right, right? I mean, how could you verify that my perception is more right than his perception? How could we verify that Jane's perception is more accurate than Tom's or Joe's perception? Well, one thing you might do is you might go, okay, well, how about we just find out what most people see, right? Let's find out. Okay, so one person might be colorblind, one person may be blind in general. Well, let's just ask everybody else in the courtroom, hey guys, what do you see? Do you see a red, white, and blue flag here? And within the story, a majority of the people in the courtroom say no, right? We see red, white, and green because the majority of the people in the courtroom just happen to have the same visual ability as Mr. Peabody. So we can't even trust majority perceptions. I mean, on what grounds would we have to say whatever the majority sees is probably right? I mean, how can we present an argument for that? That whatever the majority perceives is how it is, when in fact we know that's often not the case. Psychology tells us, if you've ever taken a basic psych class, that human beings are wired a certain way, their brains work a certain way, where we're very prone to making mistakes in perception, right? We're a large group of us have certain biases and tendencies to be easily misled. I mean, can you think of any sorts of professions that take advantage of that? I mean, the whole profession of being a magician takes advantage of the fact that groups of people can easily be misled, right? Where they can see rabbits come out of hats and see people floating, right? We can have the majority of a room see it because we have certain tendencies of perception. So we can't know if what we see is how the world is because we're often misled. We can't verify what perception is true by just asking random people because who knows if they're right. And we can't just get a majority consensus and go, hey, majority sees it this way, so that's how it is. So how can we ever justify what we see? This is a big problem for empiricism. One approach to this problem is to acknowledge that, this form of empiricism is rather limited, right? This form of empiricism is referred to as naive or direct realism. So for the direct realist or the naive realist, they believe that what you see is what you get, right? The sense data that you perceive is how the world is. The sensations you experience, that's how the world is. So sense data equals or is direct property of an object. If you see a red ball, then the ball is red. If you see the ball moving, then the ball is moving. If you see that your computer has shut down, well, the computer is shut down. If you see a car is gray, well, then the car is gray. But who in the world believes this? Say the empiricists, right? All of these perception problems is primarily because we're treating empiricism from the standpoint of naive realism. From the standpoint that what you see is what you get. But we all know that we're often mistaken, right? When you are driving towards something, it looks like that thing is getting really, really, really big, right? So you're driving towards a tree in the forest. It looks as if the tree is getting really, really, really big, but you know the tree is not getting really, really, really big. You sit at home at night and it's late and you hear some things and you believe there's monsters, right? Or there's an intruder in the house. I mean, we know our perceptions can deceive us. But that's not a reason to not believe empiricism, say many empiricists. This is only one form of empiricism. This is naive realism. And nobody really believes this. So what other forms of empiricism can there be? If you're an empiricist and you want to say knowledge comes from what you experience, how would you define empiricism then, if not through naive realism? When we come back, we're going to take a look at the philosophy of John Locke and his indirect realism. And he's going to try to present to us an empiricist philosophy that gets around these issues of perception.